Okay, here we go. Well, welcome back everybody to the 12 Steps for Non-Addicts, what we are using as a journal course for emotional freedom and deep happiness. So we are on step 8 and step 9 this week. And again, we are doing some really deep inner work. I think that you'll find that Morgan and Chris will explain these 2 steps to you almost as, again, a continuation from step 4, kind of, because we are going to refer back to step 4 in step 8. And so if you haven't watched the other videos, please start from the beginning because it'll make sense that way. And as always, feel free to comment with questions. We have been getting some email questions, which we are going to go back and make some part 2 videos, especially for step 4. So you guys will see those coming soon. Okay, Morgan, so take us to step 8.
Okay, so step 8, referring to our list in step 4, make a list of people we had hurt and became willing to make amends to them all. Make a list of all those that you have hurt. List the effect on them as individuals and on your relationship. Take the list of people that you have harmed and make a list of possible amends for each one. From the list of possible amends, choose the ones that seem most appropriate and mark them according to level of difficulty.
Can I pause you for a quick second?
Mm-hmm.
This is going to sound like a dumb question, but an amend is an apology?
Not necessarily. An apology, I know for a lot of us, is like, I told people in my life, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, but then I just kept doing the same things over and over again.
Yep.
And amend can include an apology, like, I own where I hurt you, and I am deeply sorry for how my behavior affected you. And I just want you to know that, like, I don't live my life that way anymore. An amend is like, you're completely changing the way you're going to live. You're making a conscious and spiritual effort not to repeat the patterns of the past in your relationships.
Okay, so all right, I'm going to ask you another question after you finish. So yeah. I think I have a question, but I'm going to wait.
Okay. What consequences do you fear in making amends? What is the worst thing that can happen? What is the best thing that can happen? Do you feel angry towards any people on your amends list? If so, write them a letter on a small piece of paper. Don't send it to them. Instead, roll it in honey and put it in the back of your freezer. Then pray for the willingness to forgive them. Trust us. Sounds weird, but my sponsor told me to do with that, and it was a miracle what happened after 7 days of praying for this person and writing their name in honey. And then step 8, conclusion. Once you have completed your list, ask your higher power for the willingness to start making these amends.
Okay. So for people who, like you were saying, I don't no longer live my life like this. So for those of us who aren't like giving up alcohol and drugs as that our new way of life, I was thinking of one. For years, I spent judging people. And I would be like, oh, well, I mean, that's the dumbest way to do things. Why do they do it like that? Or, they're not successful because of this, and this, or whatever the judgment was. Like, and I know now why I did that. I was doing it to try to make myself feel better. But so it's been years of me like working on that judgment piece. So as an amend, if I know somebody felt judged by me, so like I don't know if I would make a list of everybody I ever judged if they didn't know it, because that would be hurtful to them.
Right.
Okay. So then I would, if I truly offended somebody with my crass, harsh comment, which I have done in the past, I would reach out to them and say, I've been doing some inner work and I would like to talk to you. If you could spare with 10 minutes for me, and say, I know we had this interaction on such and such day, and I want you to know that what I said and how I said it was completely unacceptable. And I'm really sorry. I am sure it hurt your feelings. It would hurt my feelings if somebody said those things to me. And I want you to know that I've been working really hard. I don't do that anymore. And it's important for me that you know that. And I hope that you can forgive me. Would that be like an amend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also like, yeah, that's really good. That's more moving to step 9, but yeah, that
Right.
is.
Okay. What were you going to say, Chris?
I was going to say, at the end, you always want to make sure that you say, is there anything that you can think of that you want to bring up to me right now that I failed to recognize?
Okay.
Because they might have a totally different perspective on the situation,
Yep.
and you want to hear what they have to say. And you kind of, no matter what they say, you never want to like flip it back and point the finger at them. You always want to just like take it.
That's more in step 9 too, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely noticed that I melded the two of those in what I had just said. So the first step is just making the list.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so you would write out exactly what I had just said, like what you're going to say to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. What's the honey thing?
I don't know. Kim told me to do it when I was early on in sobriety, and then for some of my amends, and then even going forward, like if there's somebody who is still like in my mind, like I can't get to like be able to forgive them or let it go, and I do a turnaround, I do all that, she'd be like, write them a letter, or even just write their name and roll it in honey and put it in the freezer.
And then what do you do after 7 days?
And then you're going to have like more clarity on like whether you need to make an amends to this person, or maybe you'll just be able to have let it go and like there's no amends that needs to be made. For me, I had a few people in my freezer. So a couple of them were people that I just like, I couldn't get over the anger. And so I couldn't see whether or not like I owed them an amends.
Okay.
And so after praying for the willingness to forgive them, I had more clarity on whether I needed to go to this person or not.
Interesting. And then do you ever take the thing out of the freezer?
I honestly forgot about them, and I think until my parents got a new freezer, they were in the back of the freezer.
Fascinating. Okay. All right, cool. Okay. All right. So so I kind of talked about step 9, but do you want to go through the questions?
Yeah, because
Okay.
it has more like the details and things.
Okay.
Okay, so step 9, made direct amends to everyone on our list, except when to do so would cause more harm.
Okay.
There are some instances where it simply wouldn't be safe for us to approach someone on our list. In these instances, we ask our higher power to help us forgive this person, and that is all.
Okay.
There are some people we have hurt where it is not appropriate to make amends to. Usually this involves exes and people who are unaware of what we did. In parentheses, I put stole, lied, gossiped, cheated, etc.
Yep.
In these instances, we do what we call a living amends. If cheating was the harm, be a partner who is honest and faithful. If lying was the harm, tell the whole truth, even when it's scary. Gossiping, don't be a gossip. Even listening to gossip is partaking in it. If stealing was an issue, choose a charity that is somehow related to or what you stole from. To who or what you stole from. Make small monthly donations until the amount is paid off, or however much you are able to pay.
Love it.
Some people we owe amends to are no longer with us. In these cases, write a letter, go to a quiet place, read the letter to this person, then release it. From your list of amends, pick who you will start with. Identify your side only, leaving the other person out entirely. Concluding with the question, have I left anything out? Do this for everyone on your list. Write them down in your journal first.
Okay.
Read your amends to a friend or your confidant. Ask them if you owned your part and were considerate of the other person. Did you get defensive in your apology? Did it sound sincere or defensive? Record in your journal what response they gave about them.
Okay.
Role play with your confidant or a friend anything that you plan to say when making amends. Record here how these practice sessions went and what you learned. After you had your first encounter with making amends, record what happened here or in your journal.
Yeah.
How did you feel about it? How did the other person respond? What have you learned from this? What would you do differently next time?
So hold on. So step 4 of this step 9, that's when you're really doing it with the real person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
After you've done your first several encounters for making amends, record your overall impressions here. Is there anything common? Has anything surprised you? Has anything disappointed you? How do you feel about the process and how it has affected you? What amends do you have the most difficulty making? What do you need to do to be able to make these amends? And the secret for that one is ask your higher power for help.
Totally.
How has making amends affected your relationship with others? How are you dealing with the feedback from others after making amends? How are you feeling? How are you dealing with the desire to defend yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Write down any other amends that you found that you need to make after starting the process of making amends.
Like with other people that potentially weren't on your list.
Right, that like came to mind as you were going along.
Okay.
And the conclusion, how have you celebrated or honored the completion of making your amends?
So Chris, tell us about how you celebrated, your conclusion of step 9. Like, that sounds interesting to me. Like, you celebrated?
Yeah, so I've been moving through, I went through the steps once with a sponsor and I made some amends,
Yeah.
but it wasn't as honest and thorough as I later found out it could be.
Mm-hmm.
So then I got a new sponsor and now I'm in the process of going back through a 4th step. And so I'm not actually at the second time of me making amends yet.
Okay.
So
you celebrated your first time around?
Yeah, I actually journaled in it about the first time that I made amends to somebody, and it was a neighbor across the street from me. And I don't recommend doing this, but I gained the motivation to go to her house unannounced and knock on her door and make an apology for something that I had done 8 or 9 years ago.
Okay.
And it was very emotional for her and me, and I sprang it on her. So I don't recommend anybody do that, but the effect was powerful.
But that's a really good example, because especially for like regular people, like I can think of a case where asking for a friend, somebody that I know, put like trash on somebody's lawn because they felt like they were putting trash on this other person's lawn for years and years and years. So this person took a whole trash bag of trash at night and dumped it all over their front lawn. So if that were something that somebody wanted to do an amend on, you shouldn't walk over to their house and be like, hey man, blah, blah, blah. But how would you, but it would be okay to like knock on the door and be like, hi, I know this is going to sound strange, but I have something I'd like to talk to you about. Here's my phone number. Can you text me when it's a good time to chat? Would that be a better way?
Yeah, you could do that, or you could send them a, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Or like put a note in their mailbox, like, hey neighbor.
Yeah, I
Okay.
put a note in the mailbox.
Okay. All right. Yes, but
You
I can
always
see this
want to
bringing
set an appointment, and you always want to set an appointment. And you always want to, let them know, not just like show up at their door and be like, hey, do you have 10 minutes?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Interesting. This is going to be interesting, this part. I mean, this is, I think, the most famous step that people know about from AA. Everybody, it's in all the movies, it's in everything.
It's because you're going out into the public and sharing your like journey with them. And then it's kind of like when you're facing the public the most in this process.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just like stay with the alcoholic. It like ripples out in all different directions.
Have you seen, generally speaking, that these amends are well received?
Yeah.
9 out of 10 times they're well received.
Yeah.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Because people are just so grateful to see that you're like doing better and that you've made a change in your life that's like substantial. And like typically when a person goes to make an amends at that point, like there's the person that shows up at the door is unrecognizable. In our literature, it says like this man was once a patient of mine, and he came back months later or a year or so later, and the only thing I recognized of him was it was like I only recognized like the way he looked, but what he was saying and everything else about him was unrecognizable to me.
Yeah.
Like there's been such a spiritual change that like human to human, you can only like, you're like, yup, whatever you're doing, it's working. And it's like on a majorly deep level, like I'm so happy that you've like found whatever it is that you found, like keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. And even though most of the people watching this obviously aren't going through the 12 steps for real, I mean, maybe some people are just watching it as true addicts or alcoholics, but the majority of us, I mean, Morgan, you tell me what your thoughts are on this, and Chris too, but I feel like any shift, whether it's getting clean, chemically clean, and the emotional shift, but even the emotional shift, people look different.
Mm-hmm.
They act differently. Their energy is different. They show up to things differently. They engage with people differently. And so I think that people will probably have the same experience, right? I mean, assuming that they're doing this for real and not just winging it,
Yeah.
they will be going through the same emotional change that I'm going through. And I joked about it in step 5, in our step 5 video, but I had a true step 4 hangover, you know, like I tell my clients too, like it's okay to take a break from the work, because it can be really draining and really emotional. You're stirring the pot.
Yeah.
So this is meaningful and very moving. And so I suspect that those who are watching this, who are doing these steps along with us, will also experience that same like, whoa, man, like you look different, you feel different,
Mm-hmm.
you've changed, in a very positive way.
Totally.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Last words or comments on these steps, words of advice?
I think just be very conscious of like the people that you're putting on your list to make amends to, and make sure that it's not for selfish reasons. Because if you're putting this person on this list, like you've probably already done some level of hurt or harm to them, and going to them with an amends that's from a selfish or self-serving place is only going to do more harm. And that's not the purpose.
Give me an example of that. What do you mean by that?
Like if I
Say for instance, I had an ex-girlfriend, and all of a sudden now she's married and she has kids,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I hurt her really badly.
Mm-hmm.
It would be very selfish of me to try to schedule an appointment with her alone,
Mm-hmm.
because I could be arousing jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness from her husband by meeting with her alone. And then I'd be actually doing more harm in her life as it stands today,
Mm-hmm.
than like, rather than just me being alone and not going out there. Like the amend would be for me to never repeat that same behavior, however I hurt that person, or you know,
It makes
something
because
something
what
along those lines.
it makes perfect sense to me, because what you're saying is that going out to her would be selfish on your part because you know that it would be causing more harm than good, and doing it anyway is a selfish act.
Right.
Got it.
Right.
And you would be going out and doing it to make yourself feel better rather than like repair something.
Right. And in that instance, you could just write the letter and release it, like we had said, and I think, I don't remember what step it was, but if you can't make contact with the person for whatever reason, you can write a letter. And I love to burn letters because I feel like the energy goes back up into the universe and then God takes care of everything.
Yeah.
So maybe something like that.
Yeah, totally. Or like Chris said, like just live consciously not doing the things that you did in that relationship. That's like your living amend. And another example is, say, like gossiping. Like if you work with somebody and you talk about them all the time to the other coworkers, right? But that person you work with genuinely has no idea that you're saying like bad things or being snide behind their back.
Yeah.
Going to them and saying, hey, Sarah, for the past year since you started working here, I just talked so much smack about you to all our coworkers, and I don't want to do that anymore. And I just want you to know that I don't gossip anymore.
Got it.
Like, she had no idea that you were even gossiping about her in the first place. And now she's paranoid that everybody she works with is talking about her.
Right.
And she's like, I have no idea that this was even happening, but now you feel great because you just owned that you gossiped about her and you got that off your chest. Like the right way to do that is to like just not I'm just not gonna, I don't gossip about people anymore. And like when people are gossiping, like I walk away, or I try my best not to sit and listen to it.
Yeah. I like the living amends because it's action.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. All right, cool. All right, yay. Well done, everybody.
All right, so 8 and 9.
8 and 9. I can't believe we're almost done.
No.
I'm gonna miss it. All right, awesome. Well, good luck, everybody, and we'll see you on step 10.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.